Hi, this is Dr. Mark Santa from Breakthrough Coaching. I'm here with Dr. Morgan Mulliken. Hey, Morgan.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us. We have a great presentation for you today. A lot of really practical information for your practice. Instead of sitting around waiting for things to get better, we're going to help show you how to make them better. This is a Breakthrough Coaching presentation. We're going to share with you a lot of our core, really meat and potatoes data, and so you'll probably want to take some notes and have a little pad and pen around to do that. And so
and Mark, they might want to have their cell phone or smartphone ready, because we're going to give them a real treat there throughout this as well.
Exactly right, Morgan. Here we go. So I'm going to share my screen, and we'll go right away from the beginning. So don't wait for things to get better, make them better. And we're going to share some information for you. It's kind of one of my mottos is, the universe appreciates action. And so when we're sitting back, wishing wells, wishing that things were different, the universe is really saying to you, take action. So what many practices do, and it's kind of human nature, is when you get overwhelmed, it's just too much stuff coming at you, too much challenges, people get paralyzed. They tend to stand in place, right? They freeze and hunker down and just hope that things get better. So we really want to help inspire you to take action. Listen, this is not the first challenge you've had in practice. We've all been through some challenging times in terms of the financial contraction of the economy back during the first recession. And even during those difficult times, there were still practices that were thriving, not just thriving, but actually setting records. And that's actually happening right now during this challenging time with the pandemic. Morgan, I'm sure you're hearing, I'm hearing that there are folks who are having record days and record weeks that they've ever had before. So sitting back and just carrying on, doing the same thing and expecting a different result, hoping that things will magically get better, it's probably not the best plan of action for you. So make it happen. Don't wait for things to get better. Take action. Make it happen. I know that you can do this.
Yeah, and Dr. Mark, one of the things that is just super, super critical in these steps that we're going to go through is it's amazing to me, after being in practice this long and even just being a coach this long, how many times I would catch myself not setting goals. And now I'm helping and holding accountable so many clients are all over the country do the same thing. And having a goal, sometimes we get the list too big. Sometimes we go crazy and we put too many things on there. And then all of a sudden have you ever gone to the grocery store without a list? Yeah, it's usually it's very unproductive, or you get too much, or you forget things. So having a written goal and having everyone on the team with a written goal is so critical. And one of the assignments I like to always do with my clients is the last week of every month, it's their responsibility to come up with one SMART goal for the next calendar month. And not just to have a goal, because having something just written down isn't the end. Really having a purpose and the why you want to achieve this goal, so you can really vision the destination. When you arrive at this goal, it will have some value and meaning, not just to you, but maybe to others you work with or your patients. And so having some action steps too are very, very critical. So now as you're kind of putting together some goals, and look, we've got a perfect halfway point in the year. It's just mind-boggling to me. And I was a competitive swimmer, so I never got to experience a locker room analysis. And I almost regret not getting a chance to go see the strategy that goes into a halftime analysis midway through the game. And you think about it, we're approaching just the halfway point in the year. And what a great reflection. And boy, we've got an unusual first half, don't we? It's kind of like so many teams get themselves going in the locker room at halftime and they look at the scoreboard and they go, there's no way. You know, we're down by 2 or 3 touchdowns, or we're down by 20 or 30 points. And how many times have we seen teams come out of the locker room and the second half is a completely different half? And yet the players aren't any different. What they practice weeks and weeks and weeks prior to that's no different. All that's different is what they are focusing on in the minutes they have in the second half of the game. So here we got a beautiful opportunity to maybe take just one goal that we'd like to accomplish during the month of July and be thinking about that as that's the first step toward having a goal in mind. Here's how I want my year to end. It could be something to do with the stat. It could be a procedure. It could be a schedule change. It could be how you work together as a team. But having that idea, how you want that game to end or that December to finish up or this year to finish up, then scale back and say, okay, what's 1/6 of the way there? If I was trying to drive from Atlanta, Georgia to Los Angeles, and let's say it's going to take 6 days to do that. At the end of my first day, I got to do an analysis and say, hey, where am I at? Am I right where I need to be? Or do I need to pick up a little bit of pace on day 2? You know, you don't want to be sitting there fussing around in Alabama on day 3 and you have 6 days to get to California because now you've gotten yourself all off schedule. So it's really important to be measuring these all along the way, but having these steps to get you to an outstanding finish to the year.
Love it.
So focusing on that one goal, and it's not just, I'm sure we have a lot of providers watching this, but we've also got a lot of support staff and a lot of the rest of the team watching this presentation. And I want to really encourage everyone to remind them as a coach, I can see how valuable everybody is on that team. And having that, one goal and then making sure you're communicating with it. We do something really unique with our clients and having them have a huddle in the morning.
Yes.
And having a weekly team meeting and having that content talked about in that weekly team meeting or in that huddle reflect what they're focused on for that day. And it's kind of like going back to the analogy that I never got to experience as a swimmer, but you can only imagine other players on the team. If I'm on special teams, it's still really good for me to know what the offensive line is working on and the defensive line is working on and the running backs and the wide receivers. If everybody kind of knows what the team is focusing on, it makes it easier for them to support each other. And it also knows that someone is going to hold me accountable. The team knows what I'm going to be holding myself accountable, and they can assist in that role.
Morgan, a little trick that I learned way back in my early days in practice was to actually, the importance of writing those goals down, as you've expressed, is essential. It's kind of the first step of starting the wheels of action in place, is taking pen and putting your thoughts onto paper. And somebody said, take your one goal and write it down on a sticky note and stick it to your bathroom mirror, because you're in there in the morning at least, and you're in there in the afternoon and in the evening, or shaving or washing your face, and you're seeing that. And somebody also told me, cut the sticky part of the note off and put it in the little corner of your rear view mirror in your car, so that every time you're reversing, that goal is being flashed into your subconscious. And those are things that can help you focus your energy. And I would say, Morgan, probably one of the things that you would find in the practices that you work with as well is lack of focus, right? Everybody has a purpose, but they all have their own purpose. And so when we can get everybody in alignment with that single purpose, be it the purpose for the month that's bringing us on the way to the year, or the purpose for the week, or as you said, the team huddle, the day, What's our intention? What type of experience do we want to create for the patients today? It brings everybody together, right? You're much more powerful when you're in alignment than when everyone is scattered in all the different directions.
So here's a special gift I want everyone to take advantage of. This is something that I work with all of my clients with every single month, and it's just been a game changer, especially in these last crazy 3 or 4 months where Dr. Santa, you alluded to it. All of my clients, there's not even an exception. Every single one of the offices I'm working with have had immense success coming back to their pre-COVID numbers, and then also even beyond that. And one of the main things in doing so is they've been really focusing on the objective in front of them and not all the distraction around them, all the craziness and all the what ifs that we're seeing on even local or national news.
Right.
And so we've got a great goal worksheet that I'd like to make sure everyone takes advantage of. And all you got to do is just text goal 111 to that 33444. And you'll be able to take that same sheet that so many offices have found so successful. And then on a second note, we're going to talk about that a little bit as we finish up today, how important it is to know how to surround yourself with the right people. And I can only imagine, it's kind of funny when Mark Cuban first bought the Dallas Mavericks. I was in private practice in Dallas for many years prior to when he took over the basketball team there. And we never made it to the playoffs. And, with the previous ownership. And Mark comes on, young, vibrant. Everybody kind of knows Mark Cuban now from Shark Tank, but he comes on, and what does he do? He hires 9 full-time coaches. And the media just creamed him, the local media. And I'm sure he probably got some flack nationally. And think about it, there's only 15 players on the team, but yet he hired 9 coaches to coach now this. And part of his vision, he said to whoever was interviewing him, he said, "You mark my words, we're going to make the playoffs unless, by the second year." And, here again, we haven't made the playoffs in years and years and years. And he said, what I'm finding is these players are talented. Obviously, they're multi-million-dollar athletes, right? We don't have to show them how to play the game. We just have to show them how they can function optimally the best together. And that's what these 9 coaches are going to do. And sure enough, that the Dallas Mavericks made the playoffs that year, and they've never not made the playoffs since then.
There you go.
So what a testament to having a good coach.
Wonderful. So there you go. Goal 111 to 33444, and you get both the goal setting worksheet and how to choose the right coach ebook. So when it comes to marketing, when it comes to most of the procedures in your practice, measure so you can manage. I say what gets measured, gets managed, improves. And this is really true with marketing, especially now where your practices are now have bottomed out. They're coming back up to pre-COVID levels. Now is the time to begin marketing that practice. Again, it's a great time to begin doing that. But it's impossible to know how well your marketing is doing unless you're measuring it and you're measuring the feedback that it generates. Marketing is all about testing. So, for example, if you do social media for your practice, and you should do social media for your practice, it's one of the best ways, the most cost-effective, efficient ways for you to reach folks, build your brand, and build your practice community. Some practices who do that are really taking a look at likes and shares and seeing that their fan base is growing online, but they're not really looking at how it's impacting the bottom line of their practice. In other words, are those likes and clicks actually converting into new patients in the practice? I say you can't measure what you don't, you can't manage what you don't measure. So keeping marketing statistics is really key. You need to know, what are 10 followers on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram actually worth to your practice? We know that all of the patients that come into your practice are really priceless. There's no doubt about that. But in terms of the business of practice, you also need to know what am I bringing back in for the expenses that I'm making? Expenses in time, energy, effort, and in dollars. Money isn't everything, but in terms of your profitability, your practice profitability, it's everything. So knowing how to calculate the return on your investment, what does it cost me to generate a new patient for my practice, and how can I most effectively and efficiently do that? This is absolutely key, because when you find out what works, you can do more of that.
And a funny story about that, Mark, is, and you and I are in that generation. It's almost embarrassing, but we had a Yellow Page ad, right?
That's right.
And some of these young kids, I don't know if they've ever even held the Yellow Pages in their hand, right? So I remember in practice, my Yellow Page ad kept getting bigger and bigger as I started getting more and more busier. And it got to the point where we didn't even have a full page. And in Dallas, the Yellow Pages was, 3 to 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
And it was placement. So the bigger you had, obviously, the more upfront. That crazy yellow, I had a 3/4 page color ad. It was $5,500 a month.
A month.
Now, a month, yeah. And so people would go, oh my gosh, that's insane. But here's the thing. I was measuring the results, and I was getting 8 to 10 new patients a month from that Yellow Page. Because think about it, there was no social media, there was no smartphones, there was no internet. And that's how, one of the ways you got new patients. So it made sense for me to spend that because of the results I was getting. And so talking about measuring and course correction, I think this is kind of what, can you imagine now, almost every car and certainly smartphone has GPS, right?
Sure.
And I don't even know how I could even survive now these days. You get a place to go to, you plug it in, or you plug it in your car, and it takes you right there, right? Wouldn't that be crazy? And we get so used to that, and it's so accurate. It's amazing how those satellites just know exactly down to the foot where you're at. But can you imagine if your GPS just let you drive right by your turn and go, oh, by the way, you were supposed to turn back there? Or worse yet, can you imagine if the GPS says, there's a turn coming up. I don't know when, but there's a turn coming up. We'd be going nuts, right? So this is where really measuring statistics and tracking those through weekly, so that you don't, how many times I remember as an early practitioner, I'd get to the end of the month and go, wow, I thought I was busier than what my number said, or wow, I thought I had more of this than that. And the reason I reflected that way is because I never was really looking at the scoreboard through the month. And what a crazy analogy to think about how many players would never practice the game without ever looking at the score or the time left in the game. See, that's keeping on track of where they're wanting to hit. One of the exercises I did with my staff years ago, Dr. Mark, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but it was a neat exercise. And I don't know how, I think Bill Estev, actually, I give him credit for it. He might have told me to do this. But in a staff meeting, we sat around with some construction paper and some scissors, and everybody got some, and we went out to the parking lot, and I had everybody cut out the construction paper to fit exactly the rectangles or the circles on the dashboard of their gauges on their car. And I said, let's see how many days we can drive without you just going nuts, without knowing this critical data that our car gives us all the time. And most of them couldn't even go home.
Right.
You can't see your speed, you can't see your gas gauge. And they knew they had plenty of gas, but just the fact of not knowing drove them nuts. That's how I want offices to really feel. Without knowing where you are every day, every week, every month, I want that to just drive you crazy.
And Morgan, that's one of the great things that we do with our clients in Breakthrough Coaching is we measure these statistics on a weekly and a monthly basis. And we're actually able to report back to our clients where they are in terms of the goals that they want to attain, be that profitability, be that a percentage of collections, be that patient visit average, number of new patients. So we're constantly fine-tuning how we work with clients based upon that feedback. So when I typically have a new member that comes on in Breakthrough Coaching and they say, well, I'm going to have to go pull together the stats for you out of my EHR. and I haven't kept them for years. It's, it's an eye-opening moment for them when they can actually begin to predict where they are and where they're going in practice.
So then and you know this, I know this. I mean, having that number now helps you what with the plan you have to, and it's almost like a new patient. Can you imagine having a new patient coming in and never having a consult and never having an exam and not even palpating, just say, adjust where you think it's best to adjust. Well, we never do that. And right, that's crazy, because what is a history and an exam and a radiological x-ray? What does that do? It gives us exactly what needs to be worked on. What is the weakest link? What's the missing point? And so now having that exact percentage of what is your missed appointment percentage? What is your reactivation percentage? What is your collection percentage? What is your percentage of write-offs? I mean, I remember one of my staff came to me one day and they said, Dr. M, I don't know if you want to keep participating with this one managed care, because managed cares were starting to really take off in the 90s, and we were on everything, and this one managed care, honest to God, I was getting paid $8 for an adjustment. And with the copay, which only back then was like $10 or $15, it was like we weren't even making $20, I think, for the whole, treatment. And my staff was saying, Dr. M, I don't know if you want to keep doing that. I said, no, I don't want to keep doing that. But I would have never known that if we weren't tracking that number, actually looking at that specifically to manage our practice better.
Absolutely. So we talk about that success is a habit. It certainly is. If you want an analogy, if you thought about maybe you put on the quarantine 10, all the folks are staying at home having a little extra dessert at night, or maybe not exercising as much, and you wanted to get rid of that, you'd have to build a daily habit of exercising, right? You can do it every now and then. It's something that has to be a regular behavior. Your habits actually end up becoming your lifestyle. And so I like to think, if we have a goal in our practice, and be that a goal to overcome or go beyond our pre-COVID levels of patients in the practice, if it's just to bring our whole team back and have them all aligned with the core values of the practice, well, we need to make a habit of that. We have to write it down. I say, don't think it, ink it, right? Write it down, communicate it, share it with your team, and make it a regular part of your communication with them. See, when you've committed to a goal as a team, and we've identified that as the team leader, it's really essential for you to set the example for the rest of the team. So if you're wanting to inspire your team to a higher level of service in your practice, guess what? You have to show up there first. You have to be the person who's early to the practice, who's the last to leave, who's doing the extra touches that are necessary right now to communicate with patients. If people in the practice are saying, oh, I really don't want to do recall, you be the first person to make those recalls and let them hear the love in your voice and the care and concern that you have for patients when you call and you say, hey, just checking on you. Wanted to see how you're doing. Let you know we're here in the practice to serve you if you want to come in for your adjustment. We're taking extra precautions now to make sure that everyone, including our patients and staff, are safe and healthy. So pick that focus, communicate it, and commit to lead your organization from the front. A journey of 1,000 steps starts with that one first single step. When you were a baby, when you were a little child, and you were teetering and tottering, and you knew that gravity could wipe you out at any second, you took action. So in times now where it requires extra effort, you take that first step. You be the leader out in front of the parade and follow that wonderful Chinese proverb. And it's all about taking action, Morgan.
You're so right, because one of the examples that I use a lot is, you think about the athlete again, or you think about the military hero, or so, now you're seeing these police officers that are doing extraordinary things that they normally didn't get credit for, but happens all the time. But setting that example and taking action when you see it, and knowing what you're going to work on, having that, here again, that morning huddle again. I think one of the things that it's so critical is having those practice building hours. I'm amazed at how many people are constantly just working in the practice and never working on the practice.
Right.
And how can you possibly strategize or come up with a game plan, or even discuss a game plan, if all you're doing is seeing patients? And one of the, I guess, an athletic example again, if I was a soccer coach for a 8, 9, 10-year-old boys soccer coach, and I told the parents that showed up at the meeting and said, hey, you know what? We're not going to have any practices. We're just going to work on our game during the game. Well, the parents would go nuts. They'd say, well, that's ludicrous. You've got to practice in order to perform better when it's time to perform. So why aren't practices taking a little bit of time? Now, the good news is we don't have to flip-flop it. Think about, the average, even high school athlete spends hours and hours a week to prepare for one 60-minute game, where here we're just saying, and in Breakthrough Coaching, we talk about 10% of an average work week. So if you're working, let's say 40 hours a week, then that's a half a day should be earmarked to practice building hours, when you can literally talk about goals and talk about actions and talk about scripts and things, and in dialogues that could be occurring at a better efficiency or more accurate, the way you want it to be delivered. Our youngest boy, Josh, had the opportunity to work for Chick-fil-A for 1 year, his senior year in high school. And it's kind of a neat, because we've always, if you're part of the country that you have Chick-fil-A, it's kind of a gourmet chicken fast food restaurant. But where their claim to fame is, or one of their claims to fame, is that whenever you ask an employee about something, or can you get me something, they always respond back by saying, it'd be my pleasure. And whether you're any part of the country, I've been in Chick-fil-A's all over the United States, and it's amazing how it's consistent. And if you think about it, Dr. Mark, that never is a natural thing for a high school kid to say, it'd be my pleasure.
Right. They say no. They say no problem. That drives me nuts. It's like, you mean it could have been a problem?
So in order to instill that theme, or that that blueprint, so to speak, that we're so used to, that comes with training. And that training, it's funny, before an employee can even step 1 foot in front of a customer, they spend hours and hours training. And this is just for a simple fast food restaurant. Why don't we invest that way in our same team members is really kind of baffling to me, how we just hire someone, throw them in their workspace and say, I'll see you at noon when I get through seeing patients, and do the best you can. So taking action is so critical. And then also too, having some type of way of measuring it. Going back to that SMART goal, you think about it being specific and it's measurable, the M standing for measurable. And making that ability to keep track of that measurement so that everyone can see where you're at. One of the things I like my clients to do in their staff meeting, in that practice building hours that they have every week, is to give an accountability of where they're at in their goal. Giving an idea of, what's on, how many reactivations have I gotten so far? You're getting, you'd never want to get to the end of your journey and go, I hope I arrived in the right destination. Because if you're, Dr. Mark, you and I fly a lot, of course, not lately, but we normally fly a lot. Can you imagine if that pilot was off just a degree or two, instead of landing in Los Angeles, we'd land in San Francisco? Well, that doesn't help anybody, right? So having that ability to keep track of those actions and what they're producing every week, you get to the end of the month and you can celebrate. So that's so critical, taking action every day.
Yeah, those daily actions as well, Morgan. allow you to celebrate little wins, small celebrations of success that propel you, that put the wind under your wings, where that one big goal may seem so far away. If you're having a daily acknowledgement of your wins, it really is like gasoline in your tank.
Well, it gives you inspiration.
Yes.
It allows you to see, hey, this effort is it's going to be worth it when I get to the end result.
So I love this one, and it's simplify. And it makes me think of who's the decluttering lady. The Kondo is her name, and she
right.
Yeah, she has everyone declutter their house, and you hold every item, and if it doesn't bring you joy, then it goes it gets donated or decluttered. And so same thing in practice. We end up collecting procedures, we collect habits that are not productive. And if we can take time right now, when the practices have contracted, they're starting to grow back up now. Many of our members have taken a look at their business model. What are the things that I've been doing that have been really working for me? And what are some of the things that I might not continue, right? And so making sure that we're focusing in on the things that work, right? It's the old 80-20 rule, right? That 80% of the stuff is caused by 20% of the action. Too much action without focus ends up overwhelming everyone. If you've ever gone into a busy practice, especially right now where you're having to be concerned about practice hygiene and social distancing and masking and spacing and all of that other stuff, plus verifying insurance benefits and scheduling patients and collecting copays and all of that, it can become overwhelming. So having focus time where you can take a look at working on the practice instead of just being the worker in that practice, just running as fast as you can. And then at the end of the day, you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? And now I have to do documentation. So picking those things that we do really well, simplify is going to make life much easier for you. We want to embrace time management. Listen, Morgan, we all get the same 24 hours in a day, right? And in order to pull more out of those 24 hours, it means that we've got to manage our time as effectively as we possibly can. Ask yourself during the day, is this the highest use of my time? Is this what I'm doing right now? Is this generating the greatest return for my investment of time? So I say, don't waste major time doing minor things. Take a look at that 20% of the stuff that only you can do super well, and then have support team around you to delegate those other things too, so that they can be effective. The more that we can do that, find our 20% and delegate the rest, guess what? The faster we move, the leaner our organization is, the more we can produce. So delegate. I like to say, use your TV time to sharpen your skills. And right now, I could say your Netflix time or whatever it is that everybody has been doing while they've been self-isolating at home. But think of all that you can do. There's a wonderful course now. It's called The Great Courses. It was around all my lifetime. It used to be on cassette tapes and then moved to audio. Now it's on streaming services. And it's the most amazing masterminds in the world. You can learn. You mentioned Mark Cuban. You can learn leadership from Mark Cuban, right? So instead of sitting there watching the Wheel of Fortune spin around, right? How about learning and honing your own skills? There are great courses online. Breakthrough Coaching, one of the great things that we have is a beautiful website, Morgan, that's full of what we call AVMs, or audiovisual modules, that literally cover every aspect of your practice in terms of coding, compliance, how to write a diagnosis, Morgan, managing your staff, how to hire staff, how to keep them safe during the pandemic right now. Take some time and invest in learning. So instead of spending the time watching Pat Sajak there on the wheel, take some time and hone your skills, and Breakthrough Coaching is a great way to do that. And then I like just a quick reminder, and I know we've had the opportunity to spend maybe more quality time, more time with the folks that we love in terms of now we're homeschooling, now we're having to figure out what's going to happen without summer vacations or staycations or without camp for the kids. Hey, this has been a tremendous benefit, a side benefit of the terrible tragedy of the pandemic, is it's brought us together. And so take time to spend time with those people that you love. That's how you get your engines recharged, your batteries recharged, by having people who support you, who love you around you. So take the extra time to pick up the phone, reach out to maybe somebody you haven't spoken to in a while, touch bases with the patient who you've been thinking about, just to say, hi, I care, I'm thinking about you. And if you don't think you have time for that, let me tell you, you want to make time for that. We want to learn to focus on our MITs. And MIT doesn't mean Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It means most important things. When we begin to focus, when we know not only what our goals are, but what our weekly action steps, as Morgan mentioned, those SMART goals broken down into action steps, taken on a weekly basis with accountability back to the rest of the practice team that we want to practice, we want to accomplish this week and this day. This is a great way to move your practice and accelerate your practice ahead. So I like you to take some time, organize your day before you hit the email, before you open up your Facebook. Take some time, and what are the top 3 things, what are the top 3 tasks that I need to focus on and accomplish today? And guess what? If there's a big one, if there's a tough one, knock it out first, right? Mark Twain used to say, if you got to eat a frog first thing in the morning, right? Get it done with quickly. So working like that, making sure you're knocking out your MITs first thing in the morning, you're going to have a much more productive day.
And one of the things, seeing how that, analysis on your, how productive you are, is you got to focus on your attitude. And I literally, the more I get a chance to work with people in different states of their practice and different success levels and different stress levels, the more I'm finding is the more they kind of allow others to influence their mindset and their attitude, their stinking thinking, as Zig Ziglar used to say, the less productive they are. And so you've really got to focus, sadly enough, especially today, you got to focus on this happiness. And part of the biggest advice I could give is to turn off the television, or turn off talk radio. I mean, I know that's their role, is to kind of lure us in, and, with all this last little this and that, argument that, and it's amazing how that can just totally make you feel like the world's kind of caving in a little bit. But only focus on what is giving you joy, because then it's easier for you to turn around and give joy to someone else.
That's right. You can't light somebody else's candle if yours isn't lit, right, Morgan?
Yes, exactly. So it's really important to have that feel good. And that's what's nice about having a coach and having Breakthrough Coaching, and the ability, the joy I get to, I get to see the success of so many offices accomplishing things they never thought they could accomplish. Getting to have their staff even accomplish things they never thought they could accomplish. And how that, what a great satisfaction. We talk about perceived value, and Dr. Mark, I got to tell you a great little thing I share when I go out and teach CEUs around the country. Because I usually get this from audience members all the time. Morgan, how do I get more new patients? Or Dr. Morgan, how do I increase my volume in my practice? And I ask them a little bit about perceived value. What do you think the patient is being able to glean when they come into the office? Because you think about it, there's 3 things that are going to happen whenever a consumer does anything, where they go to a store or go to a movie, go to a restaurant, they go on a website, one of three things are going to happen. Their expectations are either going to be met, their expectations are going to be exceeded, they're going to exceed their expectation, or it's going to drop below their expectation. If you think about it, the last thing when you went to a store and maybe they had everything exactly where you wanted it and you got what you went home, great, it met your expectation. But if a patient's come into our office and only their expectation is just being met, how many people do they talk to about that? How many times have you told someone about something that just met your expectation? Very few, if any. But isn't that neat how our inner core wants to share something when it just blows us away or exceeds our expectation? We see a movie, or we go to a restaurant, or we experience or we buy a certain product that is really amazing. We're eager to tell a half a dozen people about that because we want them to share in our excitement. So that's what I ought to tell clients is, let's work on every month ways to exceed your expectation with that patient visit, because we also know the true story of that is that if the patient's experience is drops below expectation, they're going to tell a lot of people about that too, and that's not good news. Yeah, that's what we don't want, right? They waited too long to be seen. Maybe they weren't addressed by name, or maybe they got the therapy mixed up, or they just felt like they were just a number, or they didn't have any attention to detail. All those little things play a big picture in that perceived value.
So talking about perceived value and just following up with that, now is a great time to sharpen up your image and take a step back and look at what your practice looks like from the outside. I've got a kind of cookie window up here on the screen where you see this chiropractic with all these sort of dead looking plants in there. And that certainly isn't the most, it looked like they've been there for quite some time. That certainly isn't the image that you want to have. Listen, people do business. They do repeated business. They tell their friends and recommend businesses and organizations that they trust. So if your practice looks run down, people are going to be less likely to trust you, less likely to use your service. So they want to know that, hey, this is a solid practice. It's been here and it's going to be here for another 6 years. And I want to invest my dollars, my own hard-earned dollars, because most patients now are paying their own dollars to come into your practice. Make sure that you're giving them the experience offline as well as online. And more patients, probably all of the patients, even when they come from a referral, are going to check you out online. They're going to Google you first before they ever come into your practice. So take a look at that website. This is one of the big things that we do with Breakthrough Coaching clients is we really help look at that website, make sure it's Web 2.0, that it's not looks like the old brochure type of a website that simply has a laundry list of everything that you do, but it's classified into beautiful landing pages with contact forms so that we can capture information of folks who are interested and know specifically the condition or service that we provide that they're interested in. Listen, when your website looks old and out of touch, and that certainly means not personalized, guess what? That is sending a message out to the practice that, hey, maybe my treatment skills, my care skills are also not up to the speed of what's current. And so we want to make sure that we have a super high commitment to quality. Morgan, in wrapping up, I want to say we want to have an attitude of gratitude. When you're grateful for what you have, the universe understands that, acknowledges it, and sends you more. When you send out to the world, I'm overwhelmed, I don't have time, I can't deal with any more documentation, or, oh, not another new patient I've got to try and squeeze in while I'm trying to space everybody else out. Listen, take time and understand the beautiful gift that today is, the beautiful gift that we're given every single day, right? We have a world of unlimited opportunity and abundance. let go of the anxiety. It's impossible to be both grateful and anxious at the same time. The two emotions cancel each other out. So focus on being grateful. I like to close each day, just like my dad taught me, and writing down in my gratitude journal 3, 4, 5 things that happened to me today that I'm grateful for. And Morgan, I'm grateful for being able to spend this time with you here together. And that's also one of the things that's come out of the pandemic is our team is working tighter and more closely than ever before. And I'm truly, truly grateful for that. And, you know, Tony Robbins, who I think is one of the great motivational speakers and leaders, he says it this way: when you're grateful, fear disappears. It melts away and abundance appears in its place. So I'll just remind folks, Morgan, I know that this is a very special offer that you have for them.
It really is, because I just know so many people that are listening right now are sitting there going, I'm not sure how the year is going to end for me. I'm not sure if how long it's going to take for me to recoup some of my numbers and some of the patients that have disappeared. And having some specific action steps, I really hope that people take advantage and download this worksheet and this ebook, because it would make a huge difference in how the outcome or the rest of the story is going to occur.
So really easy. Text GOAL 111 to the number 33444. You'll receive the link and you'll be able to download those wonderful, wonderful resources. And then
I'd like to finish up, Dr. Mark, and just give people a little glimpse of what it's like. It's hard to believe that I've opened up my first satellite clinic in 1995. And then I started consulting other doctors with Breakthrough shortly thereafter. So for 25 years, I've been mentoring offices all around the country. And now we can say even globally with our clients that we have overseas. But to be able to use a coach, you know, is so valuable, because it gives a different perspective. It takes it. I can only imagine. And here again, as a swimmer, I never really had a coach that had to work a lot with me. But in any other sport, you look at a golfer, you look at a basketball player, you look at a soccer player. There's so much technique involved in order to be a skilled athlete. And until you have a pair of eyes that are seeing from the outside in, you get a whole different perspective. So let me show you how to use a coach correctly. One, I'm going to hold you accountable, and in a safe space way. I mean, I kind of know, and that's the advantage that I've had over the years having so many clients. I know what outcomes should look like. I know what certain case management should look like. I know what, if you do X, Y, Z, what kind of final product you're going to get. So being able to negotiate with you or try to share with you, hey, here's the best way, so that you don't have to create mistakes to learn from those mistakes. I'd rather you get right to the success story. And then here again, having ideas. That's another advantage of me doing it as long as I have. There's not probably one project that you're going to come to the table with a Breakthrough Coaching coach and say, hey, have you heard about this? Or what do you think about this? Or how do I get this accomplished? We've already seen it done. We've seen it done hundreds of times. And we know the little tweaks that have to occur for that idea to really blossom into a beautiful outcome, instead of just bouncing around and hoping it lands in the right spot. Sharing those strategies, not just being reactive. That was one of the things that, you know, I always kind of thought when I first got into practice, I've always had a coach, and several of my coaches were, well, Morgan, what can I help you with today? Or Morgan, what problems are you having? I wanted a coach that was going to be more proactive. And looking at stats of my clients, I can automatically be ahead of the game and not waiting for them to say, well, here's what I'm thinking. I've already got a plan. I've already got strategy, I've got action steps, and then it's just a matter of, like the sign shows, how we're going to pull this off and where we're going and how long it's going to take and what steps we're going to need to fulfill in order for that to happen in a successful manner. And then that outside looking in, that's such a huge advantage. Mark, I've done so many on-sites, and I got to tell you, that what a blessing it is to be able to go in and watch an office function. I can't tell you times a client has told me on a phone call, well, Morgan, this is how I'm doing this, and this is how I'm doing that. And then I get there, and it's nothing like that at all. So it's a neat when you can kind of see both statistically, it's amazing how you can see. And I like working with the staff as well, having coaching calls with those team members. It's amazing how they do it in a professional way, how they'll tattle on the doctor a little bit and get them to think, hey, I wish my doc did this more. I wish they did that more. And then I can really work with that office and work with those healthcare providers, whether they're MDs or PTs, PTAs, DCs, massage therapists, acupuncturists. It's fun working with all those and getting a perspective from the outside in is so critical. And then learning the rules of the race. That's the other thing too. We talk a lot about compliance, and there are some rules that have to be followed, but if you follow them and you don't let them micromanage you, you'll be just fine. But there are some rules for growth. There's rules for profitability. If you do it right, you can actually help a lot of people, but also have a very successful lifestyle. And I love sharing that lifestyle. I'm so thankful and blessed that I was able to pay my staff more than the average community should have been paying them because our practice was so successful. And I encourage that with my clients as well, because that way everyone wins. It's not just the patient winning, but it's also the entire team wins when we have these great successes together. So I want to encourage people to reach out. And Mark, I would like to, I know you weren't planning on doing this, but I kind of put this in here at the end. That phone number is to our corporate office. And what I would like to lend, as so many people are watching this late at night or on the weekend, call that number during the week and ask to set up a time with me. And I would love to do a private one-on-one with you. That practitioner that's sitting there with questions, that practitioner is sitting there with doubt, that practitioner is sitting there with, I don't know what the next step is. I would love to have a conversation with you and give you some ideas, give you kind of almost a sample of what a coaching call feels like, and come away with some ideas exactly how valuable it is to have some action steps already mapped out for you. So that'd be like, I would love to have that, my gift to anyone who's listening.
Well, Morgan, that's a wonderful offer. And the number is 800-723-8423. And if you don't have a place to write it down, it's 1-800-7 in the word advice, ADVICE. And I hope you take advantage of that opportunity to connect with Dr. Mulliken. He has years of experience working with some of the most successful practices in the country. And so I encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity. And I'm going to close our presentation today with a quote from the great Eleanor Roosevelt. And she said that the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. So I want you to dream. I want you to dream big. I want you to have big, hairy, audacious goals and to take action to make them happen. And the very best thing that you can do to make that happen is to have a coach and to work with somebody like Dr. Morgan Mulliken. And so this is Dr. Mark Santa on behalf of Breakthrough Coaching and on behalf of Dr. Morgan Mulliken. And I'm going to wish you to make today an exceptional day.